Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for Zooming in today. Welcome to the Lord Mayor's briefing. It may look a little like a COVID briefing, but the closest we will get today to hands, face, and space is the glovers, the barbers, and the air pilots. My name is Victoria Russell, and I'm the current chair of the Livery Committee. I'm a liveryman member. I'm past master of the arbitrators and the constructors companies, and I'm a liveryman of the solicitors. The Livery Committee was originally formed in 1864 to oversee the arrangements for Common Hall, but its remit today goes much further than that. It provides a link between the livery and the corporation, in particular, the Lord Mayor and the sheriffs. It is a conduit for the sharing of information, a forum to discuss issues of common concern, and a useful channel of communication. We publish regular newsletters, and we run several courses: the regular city briefings, the Masters and Wardens course, which many of you will have attended, and with Nigel Pullman, the Livery After Dinner Speaking course. Our courses last year were attended by over 500 people. As part of our communication strategy, we have a new website, liverycommittee.org. We want this to be the definitive source of accurate and useful information, both for those already involved in the livery and for the general public, complete with a knowledge-sharing platform. It launched in September and is already proving very popular. The Livery Committee has no budget. As some of you have heard me say before, we live on love. I'm therefore extremely grateful to all the companies and guilds which have contributed to the costs of the website, and also to the corporation, which has made a generous donation. Thank you so much. I must also publicly thank David Barrett, who has spent many, many hours, not just providing content for the website, but also dealing with all the payments. He's had knee surgery today, and I know that he will be Zooming in from his hospital bed. David, I hope you make a quick recovery. Please help us keep the website relevant and up to date by sending us your news stories and details of upcoming events. We really value your input, and it's a great opportunity for you to tell a wider audience what you're doing. During the last 12 months, we've decided on some changes to the Livery Committee. We're going to reduce its size by a quarter, from 20 to 15. Members will have more clearly defined roles and responsibilities. We have reinvigorated our constitution and refreshed our strategy. We're currently out to consultation on these changes, which we will bring to Common Hall in June. Our members are all drawn from your companies. We are there to help you, if you would like us to, and to assist in addressing issues of concern to us all. Our recent work has included the Diversity Charter, which I sent you all earlier this year. We are now focusing on a revised job specification for the non-aldermanic sheriff, detailing the experience, knowledge, skills, and qualities which they are expected to have in order to be a key member of the civic team. This is a role which has changed significantly in recent years. We continue to work closely with the Pan Livery Initiative. 4 members of the Livery Committee are on its steering group, including Sir Charles Bowman, its chairman, and we have a closely collaborative relationship. This year, we have also refreshed the Livery Liaison Scheme. Each liveryman on the committee is a designated point of contact for different companies and guilds for matters where we might be of support or assistance. I wrote to all the masters, the prime wardens, and the upper bailiff about this in October. But if you're not sure who your allocated contact is, please look at the list on our website or ask me. I thank the Livery Committee for their support, especially Peter Nelson, the former Assistant Town Clerk, who is our committee advisor and generously gives his time pro bono. We benefit enormously from his immense wisdom and experience. I will now hand over to the Lord Mayor, following whom there will be speeches by Sir Charles Bowman and John Barradell, and there will be then time for some Q&A. Thank you. Lord Mayor.
Fellow liverymen, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome virtually to Mansion House for the annual address to the livery. Of course, the format is a little different this year, but it is important that we continue to hold this event of the livery, by the livery, for the livery. Thank you very much, Victoria, for your introduction and for all that you and the Livery Committee do for the city. I have also asked Alderman Sir Charles Bowman, Chair of the Livery Steering Group, and John Barradell, the Town Clerk of the City of London, to join us today, to update us on the important work that they each have been undertaking this year. First, I would like to thank you all for your support in my election for a second year as Lord Mayor. I was successfully re-elected with no recounts or legal challenges necessary, for which I am very thankful. I actually began my second year on Friday the 13th in 2020, so make of that what you will. But I hope that by serving for a second year, I can help provide some continuity and stability in this most uncertain time. We are approaching the first anniversary of the terrible attack at Fishmongers Hall on 29th of November last year. I wanted to take this opportunity to say that the Fishmongers Company, the victims, and all who have been affected by the tragedy are very much in our thoughts at this time. Of course, I am sorry that this year we have not been able to have the Lord Mayor's show and enjoy the usual common hall and silent ceremony, where the livery has such a prominent role. I thank you for your understanding and willingness to be flexible. While we have missed out on many traditional events, I have enjoyed engaging with the livery in new ways, including virtual events, online coffee mornings, and of course, regular bulletins. But I recognize the serious impact that the pandemic has had on the livery this year in terms of your income, your charitable giving, and your activities. Thank you for completing the survey conducted by Aldermen in April on the impact of COVID, which has helped build a picture of how the livery is responding to the pandemic. And I know the Aldermen are planning to keep in touch on how things are going. Despite the unprecedented difficulties this year, I have been impressed by the way the livery has risen to the challenge and deployed your resources, your skills, and your knowledge to support London through the pandemic. In London's hour of need, you have been distributing food parcels, contributing PPE, providing IT equipment for school children, raising funds and providing grants. There are many examples of this effort, and here are just a few I would like to highlight. There is the Livery Kitchens Initiative, a pan-livery project organized by the Drapers, but supported by 44 different companies, to provide daily meals for staff on COVID wards in NHS hospitals and to communities suffering food poverty in North and East London. Thank you to all the companies who have so generously contributed. The Securing Future Prosperity Initiative, organized by the management consultants, aiming to match volunteer guides from the livery with SMEs who are struggling due to the pandemic. If you are interested, please get in touch. And the No Going Back project, an initiative coordinated by the Livery Steering Group to provide training to prisoners and help them into employment on release, at a time when COVID has made this so much more difficult. As a token of the City of London's appreciation, I am pleased to announce the launch of the Lord Mayor's COVID Livery Award, a one-off special award to recognise those in the livery who have gone above and beyond to support the city and our communities through the COVID crisis. I invite each livery company to nominate an individual who in your view has made an outstanding contribution this year, whether a member of the company or an employee. We will circulate details of how to make a nomination shortly. Diversity and inclusion has become an even more important consideration this year for all of us in the livery. And I know this is something that everyone has been thinking about, and some great work is being done. The Livery Committee's Diversity Charter has been signed by 36 companies since February and is being actively considered by 10 more. Many of you have your strategies of your own. As you know, the corporation has established a Tackling Racism Task Force to examine how we can improve diversity and drive inclusion across all of our activities. I would encourage all of us in the livery to share our ideas and insights on this critical issue so that collectively we can learn and make further progress. Throughout 2020, the livery has made an important contribution to the city's response to COVID. And given the city corporation's different roles, local authority for the square mile, provider of public services across London, ambassadors for financial and professional services, we've had to deal with the COVID crisis in all its forms: the health impact, the social impact, the economic impact. To respond to the health situation in the early days of the pandemic, the City Corporation deployed a number of staff to the London Strategic Coordination Group, chaired by our own town clerk, supporting the pan-London response. To address some of the social impacts, City Bridge Trust has spearheaded efforts by London funders to support civil society groups affected by coronavirus outbreak. I know a number of livery companies have given their support, for which I am very grateful. And of course, there is the economic damage, which no one underestimates. We have supported city businesses with rent relief and grants where possible. We have also tried to facilitate a safe and flexible return of people to the city, when and where it was safe to do so, including altering our streetscape, our public spaces, and our licensing rules to accommodate this. Indeed, in September, we publicly called on city businesses to bring people back to offices in a safe and flexible way, recognizing the importance of people returning physically to the city and the benefits of people meeting and working together in one place. And we made the case very strongly to government that they need to support safe and flexible ways of people returning to workplaces, and that blanket work from home recommendations risk slowing London's recovery and must be regularly reviewed. Of course, since then, infections have risen again, and there are nationwide restrictions to abide by, at least for the time being. With vaccines close at hand, we finally have some good news and reasons to be hopeful for the new year. I truly believe we have reached the beginning of the end. I am optimistic about 2021, but we know there is much to rebuild. The policy chair continues to sit on the London Recovery Board and London Transition Board, working with the government, the GLA, and London boroughs on a pan-London approach to supporting our capital's economy. We are also launching our own recovery task force, focused specifically on the square mile. Faced with the situation we are in, and with some commentators questioning the very future of the city, we have been looking very hard at what actions we need to take to ensure the city does recover and retains the status of a competitive and world-leading hub, which we have held for hundreds of years. This was the thinking behind our London Recharged report, which we launched with Oliver Wyman and Arup after consulting with a wide range of business stakeholders. The message we received, loud and clear, was that businesses are still committed to central London. We need to show that we are committed to maintaining London as a leading business hub. The business cluster in the square mile will still be important as a place for collaboration, innovation, and relationship building, even if working patterns do change. The report highlighted how we need to maintain business ecosystems which encourage innovation, invest in sustainable infrastructure for the future, and rethink how we use our office space and public realm. And there are grounds for optimism. The first major poll of global investors since the start of the COVID crisis showed that 99% are still keen to invest in London. This is also the message I get from my meetings with overseas counterparts, especially in North America and Asia. London has reinvented itself to overcome challenges and adapt to new situations throughout its history, and we will need to do so again as we look to a future where the city will undoubtedly look different, but will be just as important. This underlies the theme for the second year of my mayoralty, which is Global UK, the new future. We have had a year of challenges and we cannot afford to stand still. We need to not only adapt to these challenges, but also to make sure we use them as accelerators for the changes that we need to keep London at the top of the global lead. I will continue to champion innovation, including supporting the City of London's work with Innovate Finance on the UK FinTech Review, commissioned by the Treasury and headed by Ron Khalifa. I will continue to support culture as a vital part of what makes London so very special, including chairing the new Culture and Commerce Task Force to bring these two features of the city closer together, especially after the year which our art sector has had. And of course, I will continue to promote opportunities for trade, both as a member of the UK Board of Trade and throughout my own overseas engagement. This engagement has been virtual so far for obvious reasons, but I hope to be able to return in-person visits and overseas business delegations in the new year. In fact, that may even happen before the end of this year. An overriding priority for the next year will be making sure that our financial and professional services help us meet the other great challenge of our age, climate change. So we really do need to build back better. Earlier this month, we hosted the Green Horizon Summit, seen by 30,000 people worldwide, with over 90 countries taking part. And it's part of the Green Brick Road to Glasgow for the COP26 summit next year. I was very pleased to see the announcements from the Chancellor on the new Green Sovereign Bond and Green Finance Taxonomy. And I am confident London will continue to grow as a global green finance centre. I hope to be remembered as a green Lord Mayor, although I'm not claiming this as an official title. So I will be building on the foundations laid down in my first year, but with a real focus on the future, supporting the city through the pandemic, speeding up the recovery, and seizing all those wonderful new opportunities. I will continue to count on your support to achieve this. Thank you. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to answering your questions soon. Now, it only remains for me to thank you once again for all your support and for everything you do for the city. I know that I can't do it without you. Thank you all very much. Now, I would like to hand over to Alderman Sir Charles Bowman, Chair of the Pan Livery Steering Group. I've appreciated joining meetings of the steering group this year and look forward to finding out more about the recent philanthropy survey. Charles, over to you.
Well, many thanks, Lord Mayor, for those very kind words. And may I start, fellow liverymen, ladies and gentlemen, by saying how delighted I am to be with you all today. My brief is to provide a background to the Pan Livery, which I've had the privilege to chair for just over a year, following indeed in the shoes of the Lord Mayor. Secondly, to give an overview of the recent Pan Livery activity. And then thirdly, to set out the headlines and next steps from the recent Pan Livery survey. For those I have not met, I am Charles Bowman, grocer and chartered accountant, although a relative newcomer to the livery. But alongside this, from 37 years working for professional services firm PwC, I had the privilege of serving as our 690th Lord Mayor between November 17 and 18. And it was in that year that Pan Livery formed as a self-organized body, absent any other, with no formal mandate, but with representation from across the livery and in recognition of the headwinds the livery faced and the resultant need to bring the livery together with the aim of supporting 3 objectives. First, enhancing clearer and more transparent communication, both internally and externally. Secondly, developing a shared philanthropic endeavour. And then thirdly, improving the culture of pan-livery engagement. To be honest, well, it was not an easy start. Although 108 companies attended the first meeting that gave the pan-livery its mandate, some companies questioned the need for transparency, shared endeavour, or indeed a pan-livery culture. But I am pleased to say that 3 years on, the landscape has changed, and the overwhelming majority of companies are now bought in. Throughout that time, the pan-livery has been active, conducting surveys, creating a template for livery company communication, developing the sharing of knowledge and best practice, establishing no going back, aiding the Livery Committee with its agenda of change, and most recently, supporting the Lord Mayor and livery during COVID. But notwithstanding the progress made, people both in and outside the livery observe that the livery is still little known, not least in the city where only a slither of the 500,000 working population is aware of it. And they also comment on the livery's wider reputation, at best unknown and at worst unfair. There is therefore more to be done, not least in communicating the livery's purpose and its value. And talking of the livery's value, let me say a little about the recent pan-livery survey. Why and why now? Well, in recent months, we'd received a clear and consistent message that the livery needs up-to-date, robust information to underline its collective contribution to charity, trade, education, and good causes. There was strong encouragement for a new survey. Our thanks go to Bob Harris, liveryman and warden of the management consultants. He has masterminded the survey. And our thanks also go to you all for completing it in such a timely manner. And we did want to use today to outline the headlines and propose next steps. So, in summary, it has been a magnificent response from 94 livery companies, plus 8 guilds and companies without livery. Total aggregate giving of the livery in the last 12-month period, estimating for those who have not replied, was £72 million, a 10% increase from the last survey in 2018. And this, we believe, puts the livery movement in the top 5 grant makers in the UK. And although some 75% of charitable funding derives from historical endowments, individual liverymen and freemen personally donated £5 million last year. Grants to support education is again the largest sector at 28 million, but there has been a marked shift in support since 2018, away from the independent schools towards trade-related education and disadvantaged schools and students. And there are many other examples of grants and supports made to disadvantaged groups of all kinds and to charitable organisations heavily impacted by COVID. And finally, liverymen and freemen also donated their time to charitable causes, over 120,000 hours, equating in value terms to almost £6 million. And that's beyond the headline 72 million I mentioned earlier. In total, therefore, personal member giving is over £10.5 million, representing circa £280 per livery head. There is more analysis to be done, and please, we encourage those companies that have not completed the survey to do so. A 100% response rate would provide such a strong message. But going forward, our plan is to share the full results of the survey with you all in a manner that we hope will support all of us in communicating a clear, consistent and authentic message of the Livery's value and contribution, both internally and externally, equipping all our 35,000 members with the facts and fueling their pride in the extraordinary philanthropic force that is our Livery. In addition, the Pan Livery plans, with your encouragement, to continue its agenda ahead, using the opportunity now to refresh its membership with even stronger representation from across the Livery and to refresh its terms of reference, including plans to use both the survey results and the many good news stories that emanate from the Livery every day to help build a case for wider communication. We will need your support with this agenda ahead, and our ask, please, is that you continue to engage with the steering group and share your thoughts, share your ideas, your innovations, and your good news stories. I personally thank you in advance for that support, and I much look forward to continuing the work with you all ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charles. I'd now like to hand over to John Barradell, the Town Clerk, for his comments. John.
My Lord Mayor, Liveryman, thank you very much for the introduction and good afternoon to you all. And I'm sorry that I can't be with you today in person, but I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you all for the support that you individually and the Livery movement have given to the work of the city, particularly my colleagues in the corporation, our wider communities, and indeed colleagues during these times. And my message at the moment remains one of optimistic caution. I'm a cautiously optimistic person by nature. Our collective response over the past few months has been one of collaboration, cooperation, and commitment. And for that, I think that the city family can all be extremely proud. And as the Lord Mayor has said, indeed, Lord Mayor, you've taken most of my best lines from the speech I prepared earlier. In many ways, the greatest challenge lies ahead. How do we recover from the significant damage which the lockdowns, the two of them, and the very gradual return to work is causing to the businesses and the bodies which inhabit the square mile and give it its vibrancy, and to all of our own finances and capacity? And how do we really revive the square mile in all its ways? The city corporation itself has to make sure that we're fighting fit to take on this challenge. And a few aspects of this I'd like to focus on with you. Last year in September, the Policy and Resources Committee proposed undertaking a comprehensive governance review of the corporation, warts and all. And that review was carried out independently by a liveryman, Robert Rogers, the Lord Lisvane, the former clerk to the House of Commons, and Skinner, who set out over 90 specific recommendations, many of them, I'm pleased to say, radical, and many of them extremely wide-ranging, but each of them vital to ensure that the corporation operates efficiently, functions effectively, and remains fit for purpose in the medium to long term. And your continued input and comment remains integral, and incorporating all of the views that all of you may have within the next steps of the process we're going through will be truly vital in making sure that those recommendations, which are ultimately put to the Court of Common Council, are viable and work for all parts of the corporation and the city family. You may also be aware that we've commenced implementation of the corporation's target operating model, a lovely phrase, but the target operating model and the Lisvane governance review complement each other. If both of these are delivered, improvements will be maximised, we'll get the collective value. And as I've said to you before, we'll be able to be relevant, responsible, reliable, and hopefully a little bit radical too. The target operating model is designed to simplify how we as the corporation work. It's designed to restructure, it's designed to reduce the complexity of how we go about our business. And if we achieve it, we'll get a corporation that delivers efficiency and effectiveness against our corporate plan, something in a resilient and a sustainable fashion. And through this, we'll deliver a set of ambitions and ambitious projects designed to benefit the Square Mile, London, and the UK, and truly put spades in the ground. Over the last 9 months, there have been an incredible balance of achievements and hardships. The achievements include, as the Lord Mayor has outlined, the climate action strategy for the corporation, which truly is groundbreaking for a public sector organisation, and the setting up of our new Tackling Racism Task Force. I'm very proud also to say that we've entered the top 50 organisations in the country for the first time in the Social Mobility Employer Index, something that encourages organisations to truly take social mobility to get those without advantage into positions where they can influence and they can work in truly inspirational environments. And the corporations responded to the changes in the way that we work and we live by finding new and innovative ways of going about our day-to-day business, accelerated, of course, by the pandemic. During this time, we've continued to keep our streets safe, provide social care to the most vulnerable, support our residents and businesses, and maintain access to our open spaces. And as the Lord Mayor said, you may also have seen the COVID testing site in Guildhall Yard, which boosts capacity not only for the city and its institutions itself, but also for our neighbouring boroughs, in Hackney, in Tower Hamlets, in Islington, and indeed in Westminster. And as part of the long-standing arrangements in London, Lord Mayor mentioned that one of them is the setting up of a major incident team, where I've been asked by the Secretary of State to lead the London Strategic Coordinating Group, which is designed to respond to the outbreak, to coordinate effective response and activity across the agencies of London. And also now, of course, to look at how pending Brexit and winter pressures for communities and businesses are taken into account. So the City of London Corporation, like the livery itself, is changing just as the world around us is changing. And it's vital that we make the best use of our resources to deliver the vision that we have, to create a vibrant and thriving city, supporting a diverse and sustainable London within a globally successful United Kingdom. So we have to be more agile and we have to be more responsive. And we have to be a city that can reinvent itself to emerge stronger following COVID and maintain our position, as said, as the world's leading business hub. And I would strongly recommend colleagues to read London Recharged, the vision for London in 2025. It outlines what could be and will be London in the future. And I was heartened, as the Lord Mayor was, to see that businesses remain committed to central London and will continue to work together to help the capital thrive and to evolve. Thank you again for your time and your support of the corporation and the colleagues that I have the honour to lead. And I'm happy to answer questions, but let's be clear on one thing. The City of London, the corporation, and if I may say so, the livery, have a new and exciting future ahead. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Very good.
Here we are.
Well, what fabulous photos. They seem a lifetime ago in a way, don't they? But we're looking forward to those days returning. Thank you very much, and thank you to John. We now have time for some Q&A. First of all, thank you very much to everybody who has sent in some questions. If you haven't sent any in, I'm afraid you're slightly too late for this session, but I'm sure that if you wanted to put any on the chat function in Zoom, then we can send answers to you after this event is over. Our first question is from Arthur Seymour, who is master of the Constructors Company. And he's asked a question that is very similar to a question that was asked by a number of other of you as well. And that is in relation to the commercial property market and the office market. Arthur says, the following was a headline in Property Week magazine. Starts on London office construction projects have plummeted 50% as developers predict office demand will plunge in favour of home working. And Arthur asks, at our roundtable meeting last week, the feeling was that offices in London will recover and the demand will return. Is that still the feeling? Lord Mayor, if I pass it over to you to answer first, and then perhaps to John Barradell as well.
Yes, I will. Very good. So Arthur, thank you for the question. Starts, I will interpret starts as new projects. And I'm sure that there's no doubt that the property market has been delayed on some new projects. But from what I'm hearing as far as the office, is the office dead? The answer is definitely no. Look, we recognize that we're going to have a hybrid model, and the 525,000 people that came into the square mile every day in February won't be a similar number, and it may take years to get back to that number. But in all the corporates I've been talking to, they're very optimistic about using their office space. In fact, one American bank said to me, we've recognized that we've been cramming our people in so tightly, we now have to give them more space. And so the office space is going to change. It's going to become more collaborative. And the way the office is set up is going to be very different. So I still feel the office is here. We will maybe I hear a lot about the hybrid 3 days in and 2 days off. My concern about that for all the companies in the city is that everyone will come in on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and take Monday and Friday off. Not off, but work from home is what I meant. So they're going to have to manage that, and the groups that come in at the same time and how they coordinate with each other, because there's no point coming to the office if you aren't going to collaborate with a group that you need to collaborate with. So as you know, I'm optimistic about it. And the property, from what I've heard from CBRE, in fact, some good news was that there are a number of companies who have properties, renting properties in the West End, and they're now looking at the city because they see such good value here in the square mile. But I'll now pass over to John Barradell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. If I could reiterate two things, really, it's a wonderful segue. I mean, there is a significant difference in cost between the West End property and city property, and I think there's therefore an advantage potentially to the city with this. I think it's very clear, though, that working patterns are changing, and the recent opinion polls pointed, when done with workers, with office workers particularly, of what their preferred working times would be at the end of the pandemic. I think we need to be clear that younger workers do have different needs and requirements from their office environment, and that will change the nature of the city. It's nothing, I think, to be afraid of. I think it's something that we have to understand, to work at, and to help shape, as opposed to being led in that sense in a particular direction ourselves. So I see it more as an opportunity for us rather than a longer term threat. Clearly, at the moment, though, we are all suffering a reduction, those of us who have property in the city, of a reduction of income, which will then have an implication clearly for the businesses that we're in.
Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Margaret Bickford-Smith QC, who's master of the Arbitrators Company. Margaret asks, what are the strengths at this time of non-charitable remote virtual activities now being undertaken by companies representing or with dedicated links to particular trades, areas of financial activity and professions? And she says, we, for example, at the Arbitrators are going back to our roots with seminars, as are a number of other companies. Now, I know, William, with your coffee mornings and your round table meetings, you've probably got a lot of knowledge and insight into what companies are doing. What can you?
Well, I think. Thank you, Margaret, for the question. I think the Livery absolutely has gone back to their roots. So just in the last week, I've hosted 2 roundtables. One was around the hospitality industry, and I had the Jonathan Neame from the brewers. I had the master distiller, the master vintner, and we discussed what we could do around hospitality. That was something which was very helpful. We brought in other people from the various professions to discuss it, and it was a very helpful one. And then just today, I did another one around food with the bakers and what they're doing, master baker and then master of cooks and various other food-related livery companies. So I think there's a lot that the Livery is doing, going back to their roots, and out of that, listening to what they're saying. There is an optimism. As I said in my speech, I do think we're at the beginning of the end, and we've got this opportunity to come together. And one of the ideas floating around, which I will put out there, and I think it's a very good idea, is how, if you look out over the next few months, the reality is, and I'd be interested to see what John thinks here, the reality is that we probably aren't going to get back to anywhere near the new normal until March or April, assuming the vaccine comes good. And if that's the case, let's have a sort of reopening day for the city, and we bring all the businesses together, all the livery companies together, and I think that will be something that would be very dynamic. I've already spoken to a few people who think it's a good idea, so I look forward to embracing that and leading the way. And as I said, the livery companies do a huge amount of charitable work, but there are actually a lot of them going back to their trades and how they can help their trades, and I think that's very good too.
Yes, I think that's a great strength, isn't it? Thank you, Margaret, for the question. We now have a governance question for you, John. This question is from Mark Aspinall, Master Mercer. John, congratulations on commissioning the Lisbane Review. We discussed this in detail at a Mercer's Court meeting last week, and it has our wholehearted support. It provides a common sense roadmap for rationalising and improving the way the corporation does its business. Please, could you update us on how the city is taking forward its recommendations in a timely manner, and how can the Livery assist? John, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Master, for the question. And incidentally, thank you for your engagement, participation in the review process as well with Robert Rogers. I'm hoping that many of you will have read the Lisbane Review. And as I mentioned in my speech, I think it really was a warts and all approach to how the city works. So there are 90 specific recommendations. What we've done is to split them into 4 tranches of recommendations, the first set of which are working through the system at the moment, the ones around the standards regime. That will be going to Resources Allocation Subcommittee. They've agreed a way forward with it at their last meeting, and it's expected at the Court of Common Council in January for approval. The adoption of the recommendations then come into the new year. All of these clearly are a matter for members, so my role in this is simply to take those recommendations through the due process. The second tranche relates to the recommendations around competitiveness and how we as a corporation deal with those aspects of promotion. The engagement process for that is underway. We're expecting those proposals to Court of Common Council in March next year, again with a view to implementing them in the new financial year. So that will begin beginning April the 1st. Those 2 particular ones do impact the target operating model, particularly the competitiveness one, and you'll see some output from that again at the beginning of March. The other tranches really touch on constitutional issues, and if I may say, the number of committees. I think I've said this before, Master, but the corporation has more committees, subcommittees and working parties than we have members, which means everyone gets a chance to chair something, I suppose. But it is a lot in governance terms to try and keep on track. So in effect, the last set of tranches will be due to being discussed in the next few months. Those will come through undoubtedly to the Court of Common Council in due time. And if I can make a final point really around Livery's involvement in this, your non-aldermanic Sheriff Hayward this year is leading on the process of engagement with members at the moment. And there'll be any comments I'm sure he would welcome from Livery to him directly on your thoughts around that, particularly given that there's expertise in the Livery around, if I can put it this way, constitutional matters and legal matters. And I'm sure he would be more than happy to receive any input from you on the Lisvane review.
Thank you very much, John. And if any of you haven't read the Lisvane report yet, I do recommend it. It is a very, very interesting report. It's written in a very accessible way, and there is a copy of it on the Livery Committee website. So do please have a look if you're interested. Our next question comes from Peter Nelson, the former Assistant Town Clerk and our Livery Committee advisor. He says, are any of the current reviews the work the City Corporation is engaging or leading on, such as social mobility, fintech, etc., able to focus on how the city and the Livery might be able to help younger people, those entering the employment market? Our commitment to education and training remains, but what can we do to help the next generation emerging from schools and universities? Lord Mayor?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the reviews, the fintech reviews and all not the Lisvane reviews, but are very much centered on what we can do with the city. And the key thing for me about the city, and a lot of people say, you know, what is ultimately going to make the city really successful in the future is about that global talent. And, you know, that means social mobility as well, but it means talent that comes in. The Lord Mayor's appeal we've been doing, and Charles can jump in here because I know his firm and he's done a lot towards it. We've had the power of inclusion, and we've held 7 or 8 of them throughout the year, and that's very much focused on the social mobility side as well, and what we can do to help the young come into the city. And I saw yesterday that Catherine McGuinness has launched this task force with Alderman Keaveney as well around how we can get people from less privileged backgrounds, and I admit I'm from a privileged background as well, but with less privileged backgrounds to come and work in the city. But Charles, you may have something to add and what...
Yeah, no, I thank you, Lord Mayor, and I completely support what you're saying. You stand back from it, and talent, aspiration and inspiration have always been key characteristics of underpinning the success of the City of London. And indeed, actually, you know, the point about employability is one of the themes for and of the PAN livery itself, particularly for young and particularly for disadvantaged children. And if I look at it in the context of the livery, it has always been part of the livery's skill set, right from the word off. It's embedded in and endemic to the DNA. So I do think this is an area where we have an opportunity. If we work collectively as a PAN livery, we can really make something of it. So I, for one, am very keen to take forward this employability agenda in a sort of post-COVID environment.
Thank you both. Our next question is on sustainability, and it comes from Nicholas Westgarth, who's the clerk to the International Bankers Company. Thank you, Nicholas, for your question. Nicholas asks, the Lord Mayor spoke about the success of the Green Horizons Summit held earlier this month in his recent bulletin. Could he please tell us more about the summit and what the city is doing regarding sustainability and the green agenda?
Well, absolutely, Nicholas. So the Green Horizons Summit was literally held here virtually at the Mansion House, and it came together in February last year. We launched COP26, and you saw the picture there of myself and Mark Carney and Sir David Attenborough and Alok Sharma at the Guildhall. And then COVID came about, and Mark Carney and I were talking about what can we do to keep the momentum and to maybe get finance, and finance is critical in the success of climate change. And so in a way, COVID has helped us because it's delayed COP26 by a year to November next year. And it gave us this chance to do the Green Horizon Summit, which was like the relaunch or the pre-launch, maybe a better way of saying it, of COP26. And we were very fortunate with Mark Carney, Christine Lagarde, and many of the top names around the world. As I said, over 90 countries and 30,000 viewers. And some of the key announcements came out from the Chancellor. So he announced a green gilt bond. Now, we've been talking about a green sovereign bond for a number of years, and we're going to now have one. And I think that's a very important thing to happen ahead of COP26. And then he also talked about mandating TCFD. Now, for those who don't know what TCFD is, it's mandatory that climate change financial disclosures. We want all corporates and banks to disclose those climate change financial disclosures, and the deadline is 2025. I think that's a bit far out. I think that will happen sooner than that. And then there's the taxonomy linked to a green taxonomy, which is similar to the EU taxonomy. So it's something that was very positive, and there was huge momentum. And just so you know, we're going to hold some green summit perspectives running into COP26, bringing different sectors of finance together, whether it's insurance, whether it's the banks, asset managers, etc. So, as I said, lots of momentum, lots to do, but I'm taking this agenda around the world for the next 12 months, and it is exciting. It's a great moment for the UK, and you've seen how government and the Prime Minister have embraced it as well.
Thank you very much. And tying neatly into your theme for your second year, the Global UK, the New Future, we have an international question. This is from Arnold Lustman, the clerk to the Scriveners Company, who says, with the current restrictions around international travel, how is the Lord Mayor undertaking his role as a global ambassador for the city and financial services?
Thank you, Master Scrivener. What am I doing? It's virtual travel. So today I was in China. Yesterday I've had a 2-day virtual trip to India. I've done virtual trips to Australia, to Japan, to Singapore, and I took a virtual trip to North America with 14 delegates. I can assure you that my diary is as full as ever, but the positive thing is that I'm actually reaching more people under COVID-19 as Lord Mayor than I was before. And it's very interesting. On my virtual trip to North America, many of the VCs that I met have been making investments in fintech companies here in London, in the UK, virtually. And so it's become much more efficient. I joke on two things that in July, I was in Sydney, I was in Beijing, I went to Mumbai and then stopped off in Abu Dhabi on the way home, all before 12:30 without any jet lag. And the Indian trip last week, of course, every meeting was on time because we didn't have any traffic issues. So it's actually incredibly efficient. It's not the same as meeting people in person. I can't wait to go traveling. I think that will happen soon. As I said, there may even be a trip that I might do before the end of this year. And I think that's very important to re-establish some of those personal relationships. And I'm looking forward to that.
And I imagine that next year there's going to be quite a lot of travel.
Yes,
yeah.
I may travel more than normal.
Yeah.
So I may be out of the country. I've warned the Lady Mayoress of that. I think she looked rather relieved, actually.
Which I can see her smiling. Well, there's a certain amount of catching up to do, isn't there? So I'm sure as soon as travel arrangements are easier to put in place, then you'll be off to a number of different visits. I've had a number of questions about our Livery Committee website. How's it going? What's the feedback? Please send that through to me when you have a chance to look at it. I think it's going very well. It's been designed by a very good company called Cooper Repco. Rob Flavin from Cooper Repco is our webmaster. He's very good at keeping it all up to date. But as I said in my introduction, we really do need information from you, please, of what you are doing and upcoming events to try and keep the website nice and fresh. I've been asked by a couple of people whether the Lord Mayor and the Corporation is going to be using our website as a means of keeping in touch with the wider livery. I think it's fair to say, Lord Mayor, that the answer to that is yes, isn't it? When certainly we're publicising all your bulletins. We'll be putting the speeches on. We'll put as much information from Mansion House and the Corporation as we possibly can. We all work very collaboratively together. We see part of what we do on the Livery Committee as being a wider channel of communication generally. So certainly a lot of information will be on the website. I think it's nearly time for the end now. So let me conclude by asking one final question, Lord Mayor. This is from Robert Merritt, who's Master of the International Bankers. Is the Lord Mayor able to give an indication of whether there might be a dinner for the Masters, Prime Wardens and the Upper Bailiff in 2021? And if so, will it include those that missed out due to the cancellation in 2020?
Well, Victoria, Robert, thank you for your question. As you know, I would love to be able to commit to that in 2021. If it doesn't happen in March, we have some ideas for later on in the year. And if that can include this year and last year's Masters, then we will endeavour to do so. So, Mark, trust me, we are looking at it very closely, and I would love to do it.
Thank you. I think that's the end of the questions and answers. So I'll hand back to the Lord Mayor for his concluding remarks.
Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you all for that you do for the city and the Mayoralty. And I send you all my very best wishes for a happy Christmas and New Year, whatever the rules turn out to be. Which brings me to my final plug. I hope that as many of you as possible can join me for the Lord Mayor's Appeal virtual Christmas Carol service on Tuesday, the 8th of December, which will be live streamed from the Church of St Agnes and St Anne in Gresham Street. As well as my beautiful singing voice, we will also be joined by the Lord Lieutenant of London, the Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, former Lord Mayor, Sir Andrew Palmley on the organ, and His Royal Highness, the Earl of Wessex, the Master Fuller. I hope you can sing along with us. Thank you all very much. Thank you.